This podcast was recorded on July 16th, 2017. By the time you hear this, things may have changed. Welcome to Black Women Talk Politics. I am Sabria Williams.
And I'm Sheila Strand-Clark. And welcome to another week.
Interesting week. I mean, Russia and healthcare and
right. It seems
NRA.
Like as soon as we got finished last week, I mean, it's just that environment where as soon as the week ends, then the next batch of
badness,
unbelievable information comes forward.
Shocking, damning, any other administration, it would have been an upheaval and people would be out of office. But nope.
Not here, right?
Not here.
Actually, today I was listening and they said Trump's approval rating is at 36%, which is the lowest that a president has been at this point in their presidential life, because really he should be in his
higher. It should be yes.
In the honeymoon phase.
No,
but only 36% of Americans.
And who are those 36? I mean, what are you watching? What are you looking at?
Well,
it should be 6.
Yeah. Oh, it's not the majority. Well, this week one of the first things that came out was the release of Don Jr.'s email. The emails that basically indicated that he and Jared Kushner and Paul Manafort, all high-level people in the Trump campaign, were invited to and went to a meeting to get some dirt on Hillary from the Russians. And it was amazing because, Don Jr., just as well as, Kellyanne Conway and all of Trump's people swore up and down and left and right.
No Russia.
There was no contact with the Russians.
No Russia, right.
And, and then all of a sudden, then there was contact with Russians. And really this came forward, I understand, because the New York Times was going to break this story.
Right.
And so they gave him a heads up that it was coming out. And then he said, okay, all right. And then,
And then and then it was sort of yeah, it happened. But then we found out that there were 7 people in the meeting. It wasn't just he. I mean, it was a meeting that happened. And so it was he was in the meeting.
Jared
Kushner was in the meeting.
Paul Manafort.
So, and then the Russian attorney that was there,
right,
and then there was somebody else I thought they said was there that
they did just say there was a
barrage, right? So now it's getting big as the story goes on, which is we found to be true in the Trump administration, or in the world of Trump that we're in, that the story will come out and it's small, and then as the weeks or days move forward, it just gets bigger and bigger and uglier and uglier and scarier, and you believe that because of that, okay, this is the final nail in the coffin.
This is what they needed.
This is the
right.
one.
This is it. It never is.
But no, today our 45 went on this rant and Twitter rant talking about how Hillary Clinton can illegally get the questions to the debate and delete 33,000 emails, but my son Don is being scorned by the fake news media. No.
Right,
your son,
news.
Right? And he actually, and even if it is, he actually said that yes, I had this. There were emails that were released. So even if you just show the facts of the email, and we are quiet and sit back and we just sort of, rewrite or just not rewrite, but just forward the emails that he sent to the world. That's not fake news. That's facts. These are facts.
Well, and then it's funny because when it first came out, Don Trump just straight up lied.
Absolutely,
Junior
he
said
did.
It was about adoptions. I mean, it was about what have you, right? About, I guess, adopting Russian children or
right.
something.
Something to do with foundation,
right.
Or something. Yeah, it was something ridiculous, absurd.
And of course, that wasn't the truth. I mean, and I think one of the things that some folks are saying is that the truth, I mean, we've been saying the truth isn't the truth anymore.
Never.
There is no truth that's it's different, I can't remember what person had said a while ago, but alternative truth. That's what it was, alternative facts. Alternative facts. That's what it was.
Kellyanne
and so
Conway.
I think there just is, so when Trump says no doesn't mean yes. When they say I didn't doesn't mean I did, because there is no honesty in this White House. If not Jared Kushner, but if Don Jr. can say, I never had any of these meetings, and then can turn around and say, well, I did have a meeting, but it was about adoption, and then say, well, I had
well, no, it wasn't about adoption, right?
It wasn't about adoption, but it was about oppositional research or research on the opposition, and then
your
later
president turns around and says, you know what, many people would have had those meetings. No, not one president in the history of the president has had those meetings.
In fact, Al Gore had an opportunity and declined it.
Yeah.
So you have other people. You don't see
because
Bush coming out and saying, yeah, I did this, or McCain coming out and saying, yeah, we always do this. And we really can't even believe, because Trump's lawyers were on TV this morning, and they were saying, well, the president didn't know anything about this until a couple of days before, and, there's probably millions of meetings that have happened that the president doesn't, but you just can't trust.
Right, and not with your inner circle, and it should never happen with your children, who are your business. I mean, who are your part of your big business conglomerate, which is now your presidency. And so that just shows. So what else are you unaware of, Mister? We know that.
Lying about, because I think there's just no honesty, there's no integrity, and that's been shown.
And the bottom line is that the GOP needs to get a spine. Regarding Donald Trump and this issue, and just especially, I feel like the most concerning is this Russia piece. And just to say this, I mean, are you GOP, are you looking in the mirror and saying that this is okay, that the way this is going with Donald Trump is cool? This cannot be our new norm. I mean, I want to go back to the olden days where we, with the Republicans and the Democrats, and we had good old-fashioned knockdown dragouts, and if you lost, it was okay, and if you won, it was okay, but you come back the next round. This point, losing could be catastrophic.
Right. I think that another poll said that most people now believe that the Russians had some involvement in it.
Yes.
And when they polled his base, this is, to your point of when is enough going to be enough, it's never going to be enough.
Never.
These people are going to ride or die with him, and that's why I think it's so important that
I'm not scared of the riding part. The dying part is what I'm scared of.
Well, I think what we just have to recognize is that the Russia piece is going to go probably nowhere in terms of getting him out of office.
Oh, no, absolutely
because even though his core constituency said, I think it was something like 40% said, yeah, Russian was involved, and maybe 40% said, yeah, he benefited from it, but only 9% felt that, he should be punished, or there should be some repercussions, or that he should be removed. So people are like cool with the fact that the Russia interference allowed him to win, but they are not cool with removing him from office. And I think that is probably the bottom line of the GOP right now. So we have to continue to focus. The Russia piece is very interesting and also very frustrating, but we have to focus ourselves on policy and staying alert to the legislation and bills that are going to impact the lives of Americans, because Russia is going to be a big sensationalized story and scandal, but this man will still stay in office for all 4 years. So moving on. But that was the big Russia news. I think every week when we're here, there's going to be like some big Russia news.
Yeah, it'll be. And I don't think we've said Russia in the beginning of our presidency. And how many times in the Obama administration did we say Russia, or even George W? Unless it was
the Russia was our arch enemy. Everybody will say Russia has been our arch enemy, or just a country that we have been
watching.
Right, absolutely. So this is the first administration. Even Trump's own lawyer put out a book that talked about needing to be careful and watchful of Russia, but now everybody is like pro-Russia. I guess they want all this dual citizenship or something like that, because folks are so cozied up to Russia, and it's very ironic.
Yep, and scary. So do we want to move on to just not scary, but something hateful? So on Wednesday, Bill Belichick of the New England Patriots, boo and boo, Ravens Nation for me, was seen. He was there was a photo of him taken on Wednesday while he was vacationing in Nantucket, and he was wearing a T-shirt. And we were gonna say the name of a Navy SEAL came up with the T-shirt, and we're gonna say hit the website. We're not gonna do any of that. We're not gonna give them any shine except for to say it's disgusting. But Belichick was wearing the T-shirt showing a man wearing a turban, getting attacked by a dog while a soldier with an assault rifle was smiling behind him. And the shirt read, "Life is great." Huh.
I mean, that was like the weirdest thing to me, too. First of all, it was blatantly racist. But how they try to justify that this shirt celebrated the
women
Afghanistan and how the soldiers came, and I mean
celebrated like
there was no parrot in the, there was no flag, there was no bless our troops, there was absolutely nothing in this shirt that would liken it to a military, pro-America type of...
It was just racist. It's like if you had a T-shirt with an African-American gentleman with a hoodie and the police standing behind him and their dogs attacking him and the police officer's gun is drawn. There's nothing about it. It's all racist. It's saying, what you're saying is that everybody who is brown, who is Muslim, could possibly be attacked or by a dog, and it's horrible, the messaging, and it's okay that now this mainstream Belichick, who is an outright Trump supporter and ally, is sending this and saying that this is okay. So now we know where you stand. God forbid you have Muslim players on your team. God forbid you have anybody from, a Muslim country on your team. What are you saying? So this is where you stand. You've made your line in the sand, and it's okay for this to be food for fodder, for this to be a joke to you that people are being targeted.
I don't even think he came out with a statement or anything in terms of why he wore that. It was just a crazy...
It's odd.
Piece of clothing to wear, and I think
it's racist. It's just as crazy as somebody was to walk around with anything racist on. It's like we think it's crazy because why would you be so racist? Why would you be so overtly hurtful to people? And you have this position of power where people look up to you, and not only do they look up to you, you have players that are on your team that are from everywhere, or who may, I don't know. It just.
Yeah, it was terrible.
Trump America, that's where we are. That's what it gives people a lot more, I guess, their
freedom to be
who they are and hateful, and to see, and we see the hate now. I mean, yes, I always thought that Belichick was a scumbag, just in my personal opinion, honestly. But when people show you who they are, definitely believe them, because. This, I thought, I was surprised by this with even him. I mean, I was looking at it.
And then, one of the pictures had him with, like, his granddaughter or something. So that kind of goes to show you how there's this generational legacy of hate.
Absolutely.
Where granddad walks around with this white man with a gun shooting this brown man and having a dog attack him. And granted, the brown man had a gun, too. I'll say
yes,
that. Yes,
he absolutely had a gun, yes.
It's still... so that's how you're parading around your home, and so your grandchild is seeing that, saying, "Oh, that's what we do. We go kill the brown people, right?" And so I think it's irresponsible in a lot of ways, and clearly lacks all kind of sensitivity from culturally to even.
I'll be
the
surprised.
fact that there were people who were brown who with guns that were fighting on the side of America. It wasn't like they went up in Afghanistan and it was white people only that won the area back. They had to fight with the local people. So even that, that type of wearing a shirt like that doesn't show any of what really happened. It shows a racist picture of what happened. And so, I mean, there's pieces like that folks seem to forget when they're talking about, this is a patriotic piece of paraphernalia. No, it's not.
Yeah, you're right. You absolutely needed the Afghani people to help to take the area back. You're absolutely right.
So
it'll be interesting to see if the NFL has a response.
Well, they won't. The NFL, as we talked
about,
right. They co-sign everything except for, we were talking about this, Colin Kaepernick, who took a knee on the saluting the flag, what have you. And so then he can't be a part of the NFL, but I say, wife abusers, criminals,
Belichick,
and racist
cheaters,
coaches are allowed to be a part of. But someone who takes a nonviolent,
social
and symbolic
stance,
stance, can't have a contract. So the NFL is full of it, and I don't expect them to do anything but continue to, as long as this man keeps bringing in
money and players and winning, you're right.
So then he'll be there. So moving right along, as one of the things that I like about this show is, we could just like recycle what happened this week. But there's always a lot that happens this week. But we're always trying to put a lens on, why does this matter to people of color? Why does this matter to women? Why does this matter to mothers? And so, when you talk about the Bill Belichick shirt, that's part of it, because obviously it was a brown man.
Absolutely.
And it depicts them in a certain type of way. And the next thing, one of the things that came up this week was the NRA ad featuring Dana Lash, which actually came out, I believe, towards the end of June.
Right.
But the NRA did a Facebook page and put, they redid their Facebook page or something, and they put the ad back out. And the ad had a very negative, polarizing view of folks that were exercising their First Amendment right to protest and speak out against things that are not okay, like racial injustice, like isolation of certain religions, of different stances that we've all been taking, those of us who are really left-leaning. And Dana Lash's piece, what she said was, it's basically it's us against you, right? And
them,
them. The whole thing was them and they. They want to do this. They want to cast our president like he's the next Hitler. They want, even bringing Hitler into the conversation stirs everybody up. They want to bash our neighborhoods and this and that, and then and leaving the police. This is something, leaving the police with no choice but to do their jobs, as if killing of innocent people
is doing part of their job, part of their task order.
Is a policeman simply doing their job. And then she said, so we must resist with the clenched fist of truth. And so the whole piece was very...
But isn't it ironic too that they are pitting the First Amendment against the? These are all supposed to. They
never even said anything about the right to bear arms. That's the thing to me that I was like, you're the NRA,
right?
They didn't even go there. They were just basically saying, what we need to do with those protesters? We need to beat them down. Right. That's what she was basically saying.
But and beyond that, she was saying them and they, and what happened. Again, the Trump America, we have to be aware. And if there's a way that we can all come back closer to the middle, those were good times. Those were the George W. times.
Oh my God! You never thought you would say that.
Those were.
They were
but
better times, though.
It is now. It is them and they, and we are all the only person that Donald J. Trump is looking out for is Donald J. Trump. People. And so when you have the NRA's messaging, this divisive messaging and language, it does nothing for us. Nobody's going to win but him. And what does that look like? I don't know.
Well, I think so. The organizers of the Women's March decided Tamika Mallory did a letter to the NRA discussing why that ad was very disturbing, and asking that it be removed, and asking that and basically saying that we would not be intimidated into silence. And it also asked one of the questions that we asked in our last podcast. We said, well, where was the support for Philando Castile, right? Where was the support for him? He was gun carrying, registered person trying to say, I have a firearm here, and the NRA continues to be silent about that. And so that's something too that the Women's March pointed out. And also Black Lives Matters got up and did their own PSA or their own ad that was anti-Dana Lash's ad that really talked about, how, they basically said, you kill our people and we will not be silent, and we will fight back with the clenched fist of what have you. So it was a response to that. But the thing that's so funny is I looked at Dana Lash, and she did this first I saw her on Fox News, and she was talking to, I can't remember who the guy was. It wasn't Sean Hannity, but it was another person who basically is just a yes sir kind of person, yes ma'am. So he just queued up a bunch of ridiculous questions like, why are they so upset about this? I mean, what? And you know, and he said this is just silly. So I mean, Fox News is not credible at all.
No.
You know, all they do is sit around and talk to themselves. They don't even ask challenging questions of their guests. But then she went home.
Except for when you have the one rogue, every once a week you hear the one rogue Fox person who's gone off and can't take it anymore.
Right, and then they may as well quit. I hope they do, because they'll be getting their pink slip.
Right.
But so she went up on Facebook and did this little homegrown video, and it's like, I don't understand why they're so upset. I mean, you know, I just was talking about the clenched fist of truth. I was like, yeah, girl,
it's ridiculous.
First, there is only one clenched fist.
Right.
and you know, it does tell the truth, you know. So I mean, and really just bewilderment, but fake bewilderment,
right?
Because you're not stupid. No. You knew exactly what you were doing, and granted, you were paid to do a job.
Absolutely, but you knew what was going to happen.
You thought it was okay, and the NRA certainly thought it was okay, and so So the interesting thing that happened, I guess, in addition to all of this, is that there was this march in D.C.
Right.
It happened on Friday that just passed. So apparently there have been protests outside of the NRA since Sandy Hook.
Yeah.
So they have a steady 50 or so people that protest outside the
Daily.
NRA every week.
Yeah.
And so because of this ad and the attention that it brought, you had Tamika Mallory and other people, other Black Lives Matter, and so they decided to go out and support the protest at the NRA, and they were going to do this march from the NRA office to DOJ, and they did do it, and that was quite a undertaking considering how hot it was.
Right, and right in the distance.
But they had quite a few people that made that journey. And it was very symbolic. And I think the good thing about it is that there are constantly these protests happening at the NRA. And again,
and they'll probably get bigger.
We do become more effective. Whether you're a person who's politically motivated or you're a mother of a child that died from gun violence, you know, we need to be a part of protesting these gun laws, which we continue to just show and say are ridiculous. And they are really pro corporate interests and not pro people, not pro life,
and definitely not pro brown people.
All these pro life people,
right?
But they're not really pro life. Mm-mm. You're pro life for someone who's not born, but the person that's
you're pro life until you're right. You're pro life until you take your first breath.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
And then you're
not pro life when it comes to guns,
right?
Because you don't have anything to say. But arm up, right?
Arm up.
It's fake news. That's fake news.
That's fake news.
All right. Oh, so but speaking of DOJ and their illustrious leader, Jeff Sessions.
Oh.
Now, to me, this is one of our biggest persons to watch because he is
hate filled, right? It's just not even a little bit. It's just like and has been, and this is why Coretta Scott King wrote the letter saying, "Hey, you know, President Reagan, I don't think that this is a good guy for the Supreme Court." And he was overlooked. But fast forward to 2017, and
he's our attorney general.
He's our attorney general, and all his racist commentary and beliefs are just okay, because that's where we are. But Jeff Sessions, attorney general, on Tuesday had a closed door meeting with the most extreme anti-gay legal organization, the Alliance Defending Freedom. And the issue is not, because you can have a meeting with whomever you want. I mean, that's not the issue. But why is it closed door? Why have we not heard any, or are there no transcripts, or we don't know anything that happened during that session? No pun intended. I mean, but it's really, it's really interesting. And so it was the Summit on Religious Liberty.
Which doesn't include, obviously, any other religion.
Right, and that's what I say. So it's only one religion. It's only, and you must be straight. Christians. You must be right. You cannot be anything but Christian, and straight. Which, okay. So I guess they're an organization that is, they're very strict on, or have no tolerance for gay marriage. They are currently involved in a very high-profile case where they're representing the Colorado baker who refused to make a wedding cake for a same-sex couple, claiming that it violated his right to religious liberty under the Constitution. And the case is actually going to be heard by the Supreme Court next term. And so that'll be interesting. But again, I don't have necessarily an issue with any of that. I mean, because yes, you have a right to say no, and now the Supreme Court is going to hear it, and Jeff Sessions has a right to go. But as a public figure, as a person who is representing the people, all of the people in the United States, we then have a right to know what is said in a closed-door meeting.
Absolutely.
And
particularly because, you yourself are not known to have a culture of tolerance or have and neither is this organization. So it would be really important, to help us understand that maybe you've come such a long way, as Condoleezza Rice has said. It would be great for you to make your statements public, but you choose not to, and I'm going to choose to believe that probably the statements that you made continue to be the same kind of things, which were, discriminatory and law and order
and hate-based,
and back to the good old days and things of that nature. And don't forget, Jeff Sessions is a liar too, because he was a person who failed to talk about his Russian
tie. Right, everybody has a tie with Russia,
and how exactly, and then all of a sudden it came out and he forgot and things like that. So I mean, when you're talking to a person who is known not to be truthful, you want some tapes. Let's see the tapes.
Or you don't want to be visiting with an organization that doesn't represent, that has a history of discriminatory, a background in discrimination. But he doesn't mind because he's a discriminator. So that's more of the same from him. Yeah.
So we also know the main thing that has been the talk over the last multiple weeks has been the healthcare bill, Senate healthcare bill, and actually the most exciting news. So we thought that there was a new version of the bill that was unveiled this Thursday, which had some of those changes that Ted Cruz was really, going around and lobbying folks to consider it. And it was supposed to bring more conservatives on board. And so, although Paul Rand is still not on board,
not at all.
But so this was the hope that it could get them to the 50 votes that they needed. However, there were still a lot of moderates that were not interested in the bill as it stood, including Susan Collins, who's been very clear that she's not going to go ahead and vote for this bill. So you have still a lot of people that were out there that were not sure, like Nevada. You have Alaska, West Virginia.
Remember, they only need one defector. They only need one person, one Republican to be like, nope, and it's done. It's sunk.
Right.
So that is huge.
There's no margin of error.
No margin of error.
Right. So ironically, though, they were pushing. First the push was before July. I think they scrapped that. Then the push was,
July.
Then they decided they're going to make this when the CBO score came out.
Right.
They were going to make the modifications, and now they were going to try to push for it because they were going to try to push for another vote by July 29th, right?
Yep.
This is what we talked about last week.
Yeah.
However, over the last few days, John McCain, who was really an undecided voter, he had not come out, I think, very publicly and said
he was not
no.
an advocate.
He had not come out very publicly and said yes. I think he was still figuring it out. Well, he's getting surgery, or he had surgery, and he's going to be recovering in his home state of Arizona. So Mitch McConnell has called the vote off until he comes back healthy.
Stalling.
Yeah, it totally feels like stalling, especially since John McCain never promised to vote
right.
bill in the first place. So, I mean, obviously they want to save face. They don't want to have a bill that fails or a vote that fails. They'll pull it off the floor. But I think that it's really going to be tight for them to get this through.
And I hope
we have to keep the pressure
on. We have to keep calling, keep writing, be in their face, because if this healthcare bill gets passed, it's going to do so much harm. It's going to be so detrimental to the poor and the elderly and women and anybody with a pre-existing condition, everybody. So just we must, as citizens of the United States, do our due diligence to ensure that this bill, as it stands, as it is written, does not get through.
And we really need to talk to people that we know that have Medicaid or have a family member on Medicaid or have a family member that is a senior person, because
I think everybody, you,
absolutely,
me,
absolutely. I mean, because people don't think, particularly when they're younger, that if you're younger and you're working, you really don't think, unless as a child, potentially, maybe you were on Medicaid.
Medicaid, right.
You don't think that, you're like, Medicaid, whatever, right? It's an entitlement program. You don't see yourself getting Medicaid. You don't see yourself getting, TANF or these other subsidy programs. But what people don't understand, first of all, is as we get older and our nest eggs that we've built for ourselves go down, particularly for those people who are going to need long-term care, most people don't have long-term care insurance.
They do not.
Most people don't have the $4,000 to $6,000 a month that it takes for one person to stay in long-term care. So many people, including in my own family, have turned to Medicaid to be able to finance their care. And so people think that it can't happen to me, but it certainly can. And for those of us that have older parents or getting older ourselves, don't think it can't happen to you. So when you see folks out, like I did this morning, they were doing the circuit like on Face the Nation, and you have just straight bold-faced lies. You have people on the right saying, oh, Medicaid doesn't work. Medicaid doesn't make people healthier. This man went as far as to say Medicaid is worse than having no insurance. So there's all kinds of reasons and ways that Medicaid can be helpful.
Absolutely. And I mean, for your prescriptions, it's humongous. I mean, my mother has Alzheimer's, and without Medicaid, it would be devastating. I mean, it's already a grip, be clear, but without Medicaid, that would be the straw that breaks the camel's back.
Yeah, so we have to push back against the fake news that says Medicaid is better. Being on Medicaid is worse than not having insurance at all. I mean, when they're telling lies like that,
right,
you just know that there's nothing good
or just people who are trying to get rid of it in general.
So,
it's like,
we have to just continue to push back. If that didn't give you a reason to before, now you know. Keep pushing. We need to keep them from getting 50 votes, and I think we're on a really good path.
Fingers crossed.
Keep the pressure up.
Fingers crossed.
So we have one piece of really good news to share, even though it's sad news.
It's sad news. Well, it's sad news. It was just she just had a wonderful life. So Miriam, Mirzakhani, excuse me if I pronounced your name incorrectly, had passed away yesterday after a 4-year battle with breast cancer. Why she is important, Dr. Mirzakhani, why she was important is she's of Iranian descent. In August 2014, she was the first woman, of any women, and first Iranian-born honored with the prestigious Fields Medal, and it is the most prestigious award in mathematics. And she was a genius. That's it. She was a genius. She won 2 gold medals in the International Mathematical Olympiad in 1994 and 95, and she was the first Iranian female to do that. She received her BS in mathematics in 1999 from Sharif University of Technology in Tehran, and she came to the United States to do her graduate work and earned a PhD from Harvard in 2004. And at the time of her death, she was a Stanford professor. The reason I want to talk I'm talking about her, besides her accomplishments and how she was so revered in the world of mathematics, and how even in Iran in their newspapers, even though she wasn't a hijabbed woman, they posted pictures of her and they made tribute to her. But she was an immigrant. She was a contributor of the world, and she chose to land here in the United States, and we benefited from who she was. And so many students coming through her and learning from her the best, but she was an immigrant. And if she were to come here in 2017 and wanted to start her program in September, she wouldn't be able to, because there's a ban on people from Iran coming to the United States. And so we have to think about that. This is the big picture of this ban that this president wants to go full throttle with. And while it's been smally, or portions of it have gone through, if he gets his way, we would not be benefiting from Dr. Miriam Mirzakhani. It would not have happened. And so I think that's the message here, that she was a light that we wouldn't have gotten to see. And I think we are better for her being here on Earth, definitely, but we also benefited from her being in the United States.
So, joining us today is Anika Ingram, who is an immigration attorney with the Ingram Firm in Columbia, Maryland. She's also a college professor at Anne Arundel Community College and a fellow Terp and very good friend of mine, my line sister, actually. And so, Anika, thank you so much for coming out and doing the podcast with us today. We're really excited to have you here.
Yes, we are. Thank you. Go Terps.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here as well.
So, Anika, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and the work that you do?
Sure. I am an immigration attorney, as you know, and I'm also a college professor. I teach at Anne Arundel Community College, and my work centers there, the classes around Homeland Security and Criminal Justice. I'm also African American, Muslim, hijabi. Hijabi meaning that I wear a scarf on my head or I cover. I have young children, and I'm married, and I love to swim.
Very good. Well, Anika, you know, we've been talking a lot on this show about how policies impact communities of color, communities that are often disenfranchised. And last week we actually had a guest here that talked about immigration from a perspective of history. And so one of the things we wanted to explore with you was the practical side of that. What is the experience for the person that is actually an immigrant in this country or undocumented? And so one of the things that I assume is that it's harder to get permanent status now if you're an immigrant. And how have you seen your work change? I mean, first of all, is that true? And how have you seen your work change as immigration policy has shifted?
Okay. Well, first thing, from an immigration perspective, if you are an actual immigrant, then that kind of connotates that you already have legal status. However, in terms of being here, what happens is you have a lot of people or many people may come here legally, but then their they've overstayed their visa. And once they've done that, they're called out of status. And once you're out of status, then you're undocumented. So you have undocumented individuals who are here, and if you're undocumented, it can be quite difficult to go from undocumented to a legal status. And that's one of the problems with immigration, is that it's hard to become in status, if you will, once you've gone out of status without first leaving the country. In terms of how have I seen my work change? Well, immigration is one of those aspects of law that's always changing, so you really have to keep current. It can be affected by whether or not we're in a war or conflict somewhere, whether or not we're letting in refugees or not letting in refugees. In terms of immigration policy, policy can be set as well by what's going on with the political spectrum. Right now we have what's called a travel ban, or some people say a Muslim ban, because the individuals who are definitely impacted are from Muslim majority nations, most of which who had nothing to do with any of the 9/11 terrorism act. So you've seen the policy shift in terms of, well, who is now the bad guy, if you will. Then also you have individuals who are targeted who speak Spanish or of Latino or Hispanic descent. Everyone says Mexican, but people forget that the diaspora is large. So I would say that in terms of the shift is who's going to be let in and how many visas that we have available for certain countries. How I would say it's changed? Well, I would say that it's changed in that individuals, I tell them that you really need to be mindful of your status. If you come here legally, then that's great. Stay in status. Do not get behind. Don't let your visitor visa or whatever it is, your tourist visa, which is also the visitor visa, don't let that expire. Because once you've let whatever type of visa that you're on expire, it becomes more difficult to do something legally. Once you have less legal status, like I said, it's kind of an uphill battle.
Okay.
Did that answer your question?
Yeah,
Okay.
it does. I didn't even know there was an out of status and an in status designation. So that's really helpful to understand that.
Right. And our guest last week talked about the demographic of who's being allowed visas to come into the country, how that is going to be shifting. Whereas before there were more people who were from, say more, I guess, browner countries. Now that could be shifting as well to not be the case. Do you find that, or do you?
Right. Well, I think also one of the things is that people forget that immigration occurs from every spectrum around the world, but the focus largely becomes, when the person, and color and religion can play a factor, not in the actual immigration itself, but in how people think about immigration.
Right.
Because when someone's coming in from Ireland, it's like, okay, not a big deal. People don't think about that person's actually coming in from Ireland and is an immigrant. We have people coming in from Italy. You have individuals who come here and overstay who are now actually, now that the ICE, if you will, Immigration and Customs Enforcement, is apprehending more individuals for minor things. Okay, they've always apprehended individuals who've done something egregious, like a robbery or a murder. But now they're apprehending individuals who might have been here for 20 years, and they might have had a DUI, which is bad. But they have since been in, basically being doing everything that they're supposed to do and reporting. Now those individuals are being apprehended, and they're seeing that it's happening. And so you have people who are here from, say, Ireland, I'm using that as an example, and are starting to get worried now because, nobody, if you will, is safe. So in terms of, how's the policy shifted, it's that people are being apprehended more egregiously now, and I think that the impact that it's having is on families. The impact is definitely on the families, and I think we forget that individuals coming into this country, individuals who have been living here for many years, are people, and we just like to kind of put it off as an other thing, so we just deal with it as a statistic, and they're people, they're families.
Right. Since the election, phobias and hate have sort of come to light in a way I don't think we've seen in a long time. What has been your clients' experience with the phobias and talk of deportation, and how can they protect themselves? What would be a suggestion?
Well, I say for the first part, in terms of the phobia and the phobia and the hate stem from ignorance, and it's a willful ignorance at this point, because there's no reason why you can't have access to information and to people. So it's a willful ignorance, if you will, which leads to the hate, because it's the fear of the unknown. And so you have that as well, this constant tenor of hate and disrespect that's become accepted, and it's trickled down to even children. So people are scared to go to school, okay, whether they're legal or not legal. And that term legal and not legal is pretty loaded. We'd rather say undocumented and documented, okay? But most people just hear the term legal and, not legal. But in terms of the talk of deportation, you have kids who are yelling at other kids, build a wall, get out, you're going to get deported. And these are kids. These are kids. So the fear is definitely there, and the phobia is there, which means the phobia is irrational. Mm-hmm. There's no real basis in this except for an irrational fear. And so it's coming out, and so children are affected, adults are affected. The talk of deportation, or if you hear that legal term removal, it's the same thing. Deportation and removal, it's the same thing. Mm-hmm. People are fearful. And in terms of protecting themselves, well, I would say that there are safe spaces like religious institutions, like the church, okay, ICE, Immigration and Customs Enforcement, not allowed to go in there. Yeah. You should definitely, before you when you're at home, before you answer a door, make the person truly identify themselves. Don't open the door right away, okay? You can have a card on there with your attorney's name for them to call your attorney and so forth. Make sure there actually are warrants. You understand what I'm saying? When you're getting off work, don't dilly-dally in the parking lot, because that's where a lot of apprehensions are being made as well. So go straight to your vehicle, drive home. Get out of your vehicle, go home. But that's also not a way to live. It's a very unfortunate thing that families are living in fear, and even the children who are born here, for example, their parents, they might be fearful of, for their parents. So you'll see that malls, people aren't going to the malls like they did. They're just not living in terms of going to the grocery store. Going to the grocery store has become a major thing. Do I go to the grocery store? Okay, who in the family is going to be able to go? Is someone going to follow you back? So just the daily life of individuals has been impacted. And I think, once again, we tend to forget that we're talking about lives and not statistics. We're talking about children, parents who want to care for their children. Okay? So in terms of, protecting yourself as well, don't get into trouble. I know that sounds, so silly, but really, don't get into any trouble. Don't even speed. Always obey the traffic lights. I mean, the basic things. And also go to and from directly to where it is that you're supposed to be. And always make sure that people actually identify themselves. And know that there need to be warrants as well. You can't just be taken in. Okay? And, children should go to school. That you should be able to, if it's a state school, talking about for grade school, that is, you should be safe in school. The issue becomes once you're outside school grounds, what's the problem there? So I think that would be the best information I could give, at least in a nutshell.
Yeah, and I mean, when you say all that stuff, it reminds me of, World War II times and just the persecution that the Jews were under, and how you're hiding people in your houses, and how you can't go and get, live a normal life. And that's definitely not a way to live, particularly if you're saying, you're talking about people that many people have legal status, but they're concerned, or like you said, maybe you got here legally, but you become out of status, and next thing you know, you're part of this roundup. It's got to be very frightening, and it's reminiscent. I mean, if it's reminiscent of World War II, it's reminiscent of the Underground Railroad. I mean, I'm like, this is crazy. I mean, it shouldn't be like this, where people are have to live as if they're just with that amount of pressure.
Right. And also, you're talking about the family. So you've been here for 15 years, and then you have children here, and then you're deported. What does that mean for your children? What does that mean? Or the father, who's the breadwinner, gets deported. I mean, the
family's broken up.
The family's
broken up.
It's horrible.
Yeah. Unless you have children who've lived all their lives here, now have to uplift and move to a country that they might not even know the language of.
Right.
Yeah. Well, another huge phobia that's out there is this fear of Muslims in general. And this just, stereotypical type of language that just, tries to bring this war on Islam or something, in terms of how the president and other people pose, the Muslim community, as if, it's not this community of people that love and respect each other and have devotion to their religion, right? So it's as you said, willful ignorance. So as an African American woman who covers, with family that is from the Middle East, I know a lot of your family is directly from the Middle East. What has been your experience and their experience since the election, and how have you changed your lifestyle or seen your family change your lifestyle since the election took place?
Okay, well, that's kind of loaded, right? Because there are a lot of different aspects to that question. First and foremost, as you stated, I am African American. So growing up visibly African American, I've, always been in the spotlight. As fellow African Americans, you already know you have to be better. You have to make sure you talk to police correctly, quote unquote. So we've already lived this as our life. It's already been ingrained in us. But then I take it to the next level as someone who covers now. I'm identified as being Muslim, and Muslim right now, we have this surge in Islamophobia, which stems from ignorance and insecurity, and people, again, and also misinformation. We have a lot of misinformation, and then people's laziness to do their due diligence to understand. I mean, it's just laziness, and then stubbornness to not listen to another viewpoint. People are stuck in their heels with only agreeing with this, or not being able to agree to disagree or anything like that. And as well, As a Muslim, and I think I'm getting a little off tangent, so I apologize, but as a Muslim, for example, if there is ever a terror attack, then you start hearing everyone say, why aren't the Muslims saying anything against this, you know? Well, as a Muslim, know that I'm also a person. And so obviously, anytime there is any type of undue violence on an individual, I feel for them, okay? Because I'm a human, I'm a person. But I think we forget that aspect of humanity in thinking that Muslims, that we just aren't regular people. Mm-hmm. We don't cry for our loved ones, that we don't eat food, you know, go to school, enjoy a movie, things like that. There's this otherness about it. And so there's this outcry of, and then there's also the outcry for the moderate Muslim, if you will, or, you know, for me, you get tired of always having to justify who you are. And I don't feel the need any longer to justify my existence, or every time there is an attack to say, as a Muslim, I condone this. No, as a human, I condone this. This is something that we all can, you know, do not condone, rather. And as you know, I'm pretty sure you've talked about it or will talk about it. There are more terrorist acts that happen. You know, there's more fearful of being of white males. However, those are underreported, and so therefore that fear isn't there for people. And if there's a white terror attack, you don't hear the call outs for every white male to say, do you distance yourself from this? Mm-hmm. You know, so I think that's one of the things that needs to change, is that, you know, as an African American, as a Muslim, I'm human. I'm a person. Okay, and I don't have to prove to you my existence as to be an American in this country. I don't have to prove that, and I don't justify it. I won't do this to make you feel better anymore. And maybe this also comes from the fact that growing up as an African American, been through all this. Okay, so now it's just another layer, if you will. But I will say that, you know, I have family. My little brother lives in UAE, in Abu Dhabi, which is near Dubai. And his wife is Algerian, which is North Africa, and my husband is from Egypt. I have my mother-in-law who's visiting me from Egypt now. You know, they're watching the news. They're watching the news, and the news that they're seeing is that, like, oh wow, it's kind of rough to be a Muslim in America right now. Like, what do you do? And but my mother-in-law, she's here now. She's been having a wonderful experience being at the house. But my brother-in-law, he was denied a visa. Without them even looking at his immigration or his visa application. He was just denied on the fact that he was a young male. So you see that type of thing going on, and technically there's nothing he can really do because he's not a legal permanent resident nor a citizen, so therefore he has no real standing as, you know, in terms of needing to come into the country. So you see this happening, and it's disheartening because all he wanted to do was visit, and he cannot because it's automatically assumed that he will not return to his home country, which is what you saw as well with the denial of the Sudanese and as well as the Afghani girls, originally the robotics team. Their visas were denied, even though the Afghani team, they weren't a part of. Their country was not on the list, but they were denied twice. At the last minute, Trump did allow for them to come in because that really was not going to bode well for the look of not letting this all-female robotics team come in. Mm-hmm. But at the end of the day, you know, the experience since the election, I would say that, you know, people, my family overseas, are asking, because they're doing fine in UAE, and they want to know, how does it feel for us? They're worried about us in the United States of America. Isn't that crazy? They're worried about us being here and how we're living our lives. And because I do cover or wear hijab, I definitely have seen there has been some slight differences in terms of people staring at me. At first I thought I was being just sensitive, but no, I was like, no, they're staring. And I remember one end of the time I said hello to someone, and they just stared at me and like they were scared and just moved away. And it happened again. This was in Arnold. And it happened again. I was like, oh, I'm getting a pattern here. And in terms of how my lifestyle has changed, I would say for the most part, I think one of the major things is that because I have young children, I think more about you know, my actions, okay, and engaging with other individuals so as not to escalate situations. Do you understand?
Wow.
Because I have to protect my children.
Right.
And And one of the major things for me was I have a son, he's going to be entering kindergarten, and I wanted to have an Islamic foundation, Muslim foundation, just like sending your kid to Catholic school. But people think, oh my God, madrasa. No, it's just like sending a kid to Catholic school. Right. And because I wanted to have a strong Muslim foundation, and then he would carry on, maybe after 4th grade. But I was worried about one public school. It's like, is he going to be taunted, because he's Muslim? Thankfully, where we are, it's pretty decent and diverse, but it's still something to think about. But then what got into my mind was, well, wait a minute, he's going to be going to this Muslim school or this Islamic school. Will that school be targeted by some fool, right? Right. So, and I was up at night, really tossing and turning, like, okay, how well known is this school? All right, well, it's not associated with a masjid, a mosque, so maybe it's okay. But I actually had to think about that. I actually worried about it being targeted because it's an Islamic school, and that made me uncomfortable. That definitely made me uncomfortable.
Absolutely.
It's because you want to protect your kids.
Yeah, that's crazy. I mean, and having gone to Muslim school myself, I was born Muslim. It's fascinating to hear you talk about having to make the decision and why, and what went into making the decision on both ends on why, and both ends it's because of hate and people being lazy and not wanting to get information.
Yeah. Wow, and Anika, thank you so much for sharing that with us. And I mean,
Are you going to say the choice that you made, or do you want to keep that private?
I'm sorry?
Do you want to say the choice that you made for your son, or are you going to keep it private? I'd be interested.
Oh, no, that's fine. We chose Islamic school because, I want him to have a good Islamic foundation.
Absolutely.
But it was definitely something that me and my husband, we were up at night like, okay, are we endangering him? Are we protecting him? Like, what are we doing?
Right. 5 years ago, you would not have blinked twice.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, Anika, again, thank you so much for coming on with us today and sharing this information. It's been really insightful and
well, thank you.
And fascinating, really, because the complexity of everything from just average, like you said, decisions from going to the grocery store all the way through how folks are having to live their lives in a very, very protective fashion. It just continues to show that this is not an issue to use generalizations. Our government tries to generalize and stereotype the Muslim community or the immigrant community or even folks who are undocumented. And we need to have a spirit of working together, all of our communities, to make our world better. Like you said, where's the humanity? And there's a piece of us that we are humans and we are people. And it should be our humanity that brings us together.
Donald Trump is president, so humanity, and even saying Donald Trump in the same sentence is pretty impossible. I mean, so I'm hoping that we can be better than he is.
Well, we are the light.
We are the light, right? We are the light.
Yeah, no, we have to be better than he is because he's an anomaly, man. I'm sorry. I mean, and he's not doing it alone. I mean, he's the one who represents, unfortunately, the United States as the president of the United States. He's the one who represents us in, foreign affairs and everything. It's just extremely unfortunate and dangerous, the fact that he's not well learned, that he doesn't know what he's doing, that he doesn't care, that he is hateful, that he is a racist and a bigot. He's all of those things.
150%.
And because we have our First Amendment protections, we can say this. But the way things are going, people don't stand up for their rights, then those rights will slip away. So people have to maintain that. I mean, I don't know. Don't get me started on that.
I know, because we could talk forever. If we don't stop ourselves, literally, we could be here till next Sunday.
And you can always come back, Anika. We would love to have you come back. Well, I just want to plug
love to do that.
I want to plug your law firm again. So it's the Ingram Firm in Columbia, Maryland, and the website is www.ingfirm.com. And so,
yes.
Is that right? And is there anything else, Anika, you want to share kind of before we sign off from this time?
Just give charity in a smile. You never know whose day you might make.
Nice.
Absolutely.
Awesome.
All right.
Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much, and we'll talk soon.
Okay, we are now at the portion of our podcast we act up, where we're going to ask you all to actively do something during the week. So I'm going to say, since we were talking NRA, and every Friday there's a contingent that has protests. They follow their First Amendment right. And I would say that you go down there and you protest whatever issues you might have with the NRA, whatever, if it's something personally or something that you've just seen happen in the world or in the United States. I would say go there, because you will not be alone. There are at least 50 people, as we know, as Sheila mentioned earlier, that are there every Friday protesting them to change policy, to have a different voice, to shift and make it more inclusive. I would also say that we still need to make sure that this bill the healthcare bill does not pass, that the Senate that we call our representatives, that we write our representatives, that we are screaming to them that Medicaid is important, and without Medicaid, you will be enacting a genocide, as one of our guests said a few weeks ago, to a lot of people in our who are affected by HIV and AIDS, and we cannot, as humans of the world, allow that to happen. So we are asking you to write and scream and yell at your representatives with regard to the healthcare bill, and go down with a sign to the NRA.
Okay. Well, with that, I'd just like to say it's just another interesting week. I'm sure we'll have more to talk about next week, as we always do. And for now, we are signing off for Black Women Talk Politics. I'm Sheila Clark.
I'm Sabria Williams.
Catch you next time.
Bye.